We'll call to order the August 10th meeting of the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission meeting. I'll start off with reading the script for remotely conducted open meetings. As a preliminary matter, this is Arthur Gasparo, Nantucket Airport Commission Chairman. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Ms. Topham?
Here.
Mr. Buscarin?
Here.
Ms. Planzer?
Here.
Mr. Marks?
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. Rafter?
Here.
Mr. Carberg?
Here.
Ms. Sylvia?
Here.
Ms. Perales?
Here.
Thank you all. There are no anticipated speakers on the agenda. We will be joined at some point by Council Dave Mackey or Christina Marshall of Anderson and Krieger, who will be with the commission for executive session, which follows the open meeting. Introduction to the remote meeting. Good evening. This open meeting for the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission is conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Act of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. The meeting will be aired at a later time on the Town of Nantucket YouTube channel. Please note the meeting is being recorded. All attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for the effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So this meeting, if that didn't cover it, is being both audio and video recorded. And we'll move to item 2 on the agenda, which is to review and approve the agenda. Any corrections, additions, or concerns with the agenda? Hearing none, we'll consider that adopted by unanimous consent. We have for approval the draft minutes of the July 13th, 2021 meeting. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns, or a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Ms. Planzer, how do you vote? Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Ms. Topham? You're muted, Ms. Topham.
I lost it. I had just something popping up. So I'm here. I don't know what you said. I approve.
Thank you. Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We have the warrants to ratify for 6/30, 7/21, and 8/4. Is there a motion to ratify those warrants?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? There's a second to
Second.
ratify. Motion's been made and seconded. Ms. Planzer, how do you vote? Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Ms. Topham? And Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We have pending leases contracts as set forth on Exhibit 1, which exhibit is here incorporated by reference. And I'll turn that over to Mr. Rafter to go over the Exhibit 1, please.
Thank you. The first item is an operating agreement with Spectacular Air doing business as Allies Air, and it's an annual business fee of $1,500. Next is a contract with Robert B. Auer for the Mattoxan Valley Road water line, and that's for $2,809,873. And then we have a contract with McFarland Johnson for $4,500 to do our annual botanical monitoring. Next is also another contract with McFarland Johnson. That's $201,400 for the environmental permitting support service for airfield improvements, which is an airport improvement program, FAA funded project. The other two are still pending.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on any of the pending contracts? I would ask that we break them out. I'm going to recuse from the Robert B. Auer contract and turn the meeting over to Ms. Planzer for that. So if we could do two motions, if we could do one on the other three, I'd be happy to participate in that. Mr. Marks?
Yeah, I have to recuse from the Spectacular Air as I'm an investor in Allies Air.
Okay, so why don't we break them into two? Where is there a motion to approve? Let me just open, sorry.
We could do the two McFarland Johnson together, correct?
Correct. Is there a motion to approve the two McFarland Johnson contracts?
So
I'll make
moved.
the motion.
So how about a second?
Second.
So motion's been made and seconded. Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
And Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. And why don't we do Spectacular Air next? Mr. Marks, if you want to recuse on that one. And is there a motion to approve the contract with Spectacular Air, doing business as Allies Air?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. And Ms. Planzer, if I could turn it over to you for the vote on the Robert B. Auer contract, please.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the Robert B. Auer contract?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. How do you vote, Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Okay. And how do you vote, Mr. Marks?
Aye.
And how do you vote, Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Okay, and the vice chair votes aye.
Thank you, Ms. Planzer.
Okay.
Moving on to pending matters, I'll turn this over to you, Mr. Rafter.
Thank you. The capital approval process home rule petition, you may recall, was a home rule petition that we had passed at town meeting that would allow the select board to approve capital projects, which would then allow us to meet the deadlines for applying for FAA grants. And a hearing was held on that matter on July 27th. And in addition to written testimony submitted by the chair, our legal counsel also testified in person. We don't have a sense yet as to the timing of it, but we're pleased that it's moving forward. So that's pretty good news. And if there's no questions on that, the next is the PFAS investigation update. And I'd like to turn that over to Assistant Airport Manager Noah Carver.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my PFAS report for commission meeting for Tuesday, August 10th. The activity report table update is in your packet. The highlights of that packet, we are at 462 samples taken from 77 private wells. We've been sampling some POET system locations for over a year now, and there is consistency in those repeat sampling results. And all of this data is available on our website, ack-pfas.com. We've had some additional sampling activity that's occurred over the last month related to the MCP investigation. For the area at the dead end at the east end of Sun Island Road, after a review by our consultant, there are no drinking water supply wells within 500 feet of NOR 3 and NOR 4. So no further sampling is required in the area of Sun Island Road at this time. We sampled and received results for soil samples taken off of the southeast side of Taxiway Echo between Bravo and Charlie. We resampled and stepped out as indicated in a location for a MCP exceedance for soil. But based on this repeat sampling, it was determined that the sample area does not exceed the actionable standard, either at the original location or at the step out sampling. And that work can go forward for this fall for that phase of Taxiway Echo reconstruction without additional soils litigation. So that's good news. The IRA update report, if you'll recall, we used to receive these monthly. We now are on a biannual schedule. We'll receive the next biannual IRA update to review at the staff level, probably at the end of this week, and we'll then publish to the website and to DEP at the end of this month. And for our irrigation systems, we have irrigation wells that we use to water both the sort of the entrance park at Airport Road and Old South Road with the statues, the parking lot islands, and that the town uses at the Delta fields. We've sampled these irrigation systems, those water supplies, and we should have this information available in the next 10 days to 2 weeks, depending on sampling processing times. For our water service project, where we're bringing water services to homeowners, 7 or 8 homeowners west of the airport, the plumbing contractor has informed us that they are no longer interested in the work, citing a combination of staffing issues and delays caused by the municipal review of the indemnification and bonding issue. This effectively puts us almost all the way back to step 1 for connecting these homeowners. I'd characterize that it's very difficult to find a plumber willing to take on municipal work and the extra administrative layers that go along with that work. It's also been very difficult to find flexibility within a system that's not designed to accommodate the public sector taking on traditional private side work. But we have 3 actions in progress related to this setback, and they are, first, that we started reaching out to these homeowners in the order that they were originally sampled to discuss next steps. One of the options we'd like the resident to consider is the settlement agreements, reimbursable agreements, where we agree on a scope of work, the resident performs it, and we reimburse their costs directly to the owner. We also have a meeting scheduled on Friday with town finance and our consultant group to review how to repackage the procurement for this private side connection. Of course, we'll give it our best effort, but we're 0 for 14 in plumbers so far. I'm not necessarily hopeful, although maybe with the fall and winter timing schedule, some regional or some Cape firms would be interested in coming over to perform the work. On good news, we do have a homeowner who's interested in pursuing his own water service and then seeking reimbursement for this settlement agreement. I believe we're planning on meeting with this homeowner at his property on Friday to review the site so we can itemize the costs that would go into this agreement. We don't have this sort of the legal instrument agreement ready for you as we would have liked to. It's still with the homeowner's attorney based on the recommendation from our counsel. We're not releasing it to the packet at this time until the homeowner's counsel has completed his review. For the water main extension project, thank you for approving the contract with Robert B. Auer a few minutes ago. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. through the Policy and Public Service Subcommittee, we will be holding a project review to introduce the water main extension project via Zoom. We will also hold a pre-construction meeting with Robert B. Hour on Thursday to review the project phasing and timing, more notably as it crosses the airfield and impacts active airport operations. A piece of late breaking news from this afternoon through our consultant, McFarland Johnson. Robert B. Hour has informed us of some supply chain issues with, I believe, the PVC material for the actual water main. I don't have much more information other than we've, at the suggestion of McFarland Johnson, we're asking Robert B. Hour to re-quote the affected portions of the water main run and alternative materials. I believe that would be ductile iron. Really, that's all I have to report at this time. We're keeping a close watch on this to see if it affects project schedule, especially knowing that we have the homeowner meeting coming up tomorrow. I have 4 additional miscellaneous items to conclude my report. The airport's contributing a slide to the town-sponsored PFAS listening session next week. I believe that's now scheduled and advertised for Tuesday, the 17th. Airport staff and town finance are going to review the applicability of utilizing the state revolving fund with those state personnel. The potential outcome is there could be low interest loans or no interest loans available for the water main or other remediation efforts. We'll review that and we'll continue to advise the commission on any next steps. The airport contributed study information to the UMass group that's conducting the residential sampling of Nantucket private drinking water wells. The information was requested to help them determine who has already been sampled under our program, what the spatial distribution is of our investigation. It will help them with their sampling list. And McFarland Johnson has identified an alternative vendor to provide catch basin investigative work and cleaning relative to the fuel farm. You may recall from a few months ago, there is an adjacent catch basin to the fuel farm that has historically been used for sumping stormwater from the fuel farm. It's denoted as catch basin 333 in our inventory plan. This vendor will verify the construction of the catch basin, clean the catch basin, and I believe we've specified that they're going to use a camera to confirm and trace if there are any inlets or outlets associated with it. I feel that's an important item to wrap up for our investigation. There's no additional cost. It's just an outstanding item from a previous task order where the previous firm was not able to mobilize to Nantucket. So we found an alternative firm. So that would conclude my PFAS report. Are there any questions at this time?
I have a question, Noah, please.
Yes.
Have you considered asking the homeowners if they could hire their own plumbers to install their, they would have some, I think, connection with them that maybe they'd be willing to do it on a one-on-one basis?
That is our hope through the settlement reimbursement agreement, that they would hire, in addition to their own plumbers, their own landscaper, if there's any, for example, driveway or landscaping rehabilitation, as well as the private side excavation company. So I agree, there's fewer layers of administration for them to work through, and frankly, some members of the public, I think, just have a stronger, more personal connection to trades folks than the municipality does.
Thank you.
No, if I may, the problem you were having with the plumbers, was that to hook up from the new water line or install filter systems? I got lost there, sorry.
So the current problem with plumber interest is to perform the reconnection work inside of the home, from switching over from a well supply to public supply, to isolate the systems, in some cases to pull the old pressure tank, items like that.
Gotcha, thanks.
Anybody else? Any questions or comments on that report? I only had one, which, you know, the material cost is going to be that versus time. So please keep us posted. Ductile iron is going to be quite a bit more expensive than PVC for sure. 1.5 or more times, I would just be guessing. But, you know, see, it might be a trade-off on time that we have to consider versus that cost. Thanks. If there's nothing further, we will move on to item 5, which is to ratify the FAA grant award, which was AIP 77 for the environmental permitting support services for airfield improvements for the amount of $317,697. You may recall, I believe this is a grant we had previously approved, but the amount wasn't correct. And so this is to correct that. Are there any questions or a motion to ratify that grant?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. I'll turn the next item 6 over to Mr. Rafter about the public hearing.
Thank you. There's a proposed public hearing scheduled for September 14th for the codification of town regulations, what they're working on, and they've been working on for quite a while, but it got interrupted by the pandemic, was they're taking each department's rules and regulations and codifying them into a single book. So it will organize it better, and I believe will also assist the law enforcement if there's a need to cite somebody for a violation. We had submitted some minor changes, which are in your packet. Things like changing the Mass Aeronautics Commission to the Mass Department of Aeronautics, and some GPU language, but very minor changes to the rules and regs that we submitted. So I just wanted to make the commission aware of that here.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on that? So we have that public hearing, Tom, just to be clear, that's our public hearing?
No, that'll be for the select board. Wait, I'm gonna have to ask Katie. I think you're right. We do have to have a public hearing to adopt them, yes.
Okay, so that's
Yeah,
the
that's
night of our meeting.
for the airport to have a public meeting. So I don't know if you have to make any type of vote that says you're gonna have a public meeting next time, or is this just like an announcement to the public that the public meeting is coming? I'm not positive.
I think if there's no objection to the public hearing, then we can consider that by unanimous consent and leave it to staff to properly advertise that hearing. And in the meantime, there's the draft in your packet. If you had any questions or comments, suggested language, to communicate those back to Mr. Rafter. And then we can discuss them at the public hearing, if that's amenable to all. Hearing no objections, I think that we'll consider that we'll have a public hearing on the 14th. And we'll move on to item 7, finance, the capital projects and fiscal 23 year budget update. Mr. Rafter.
Yeah, we've previously provided a summary of some of our capital project requests, but in your packet today is the capital improvement plan that we have to submit to the FAA, and it's in draft right now. We have a meeting with them next week, a week from today, and they'll be aligned according to what their funding priorities are on a national basis. And we'll bring that back to you. On the other items, if you will, the smaller items, Noah and Jamie met with the town manager, and there were some suggestions made that we're going to seriously consider. One is switching over the parking vehicle to an electric vehicle. They identified that the OPM costs for the housing seem to be very low, and they suggested that the project be divided into 2 phases of planning and design and construction to allow for better planning on the appropriation. There was also some discussion about additional minor paving work that we're looking to try to accomplish through a change order under taxiway Echo, as well as requesting a supplemental appropriation for the terminal HVAC project based on bids and revised engineer's estimate. So we're looking to submit a supplemental request for about 300,000 for that project.
Did, this is on page 93 of your packet. It's a lot of fine print. And did any commissioners have any questions, comments, or suggestions related to the 5-year CIP? I had one or two really, which I raised to Mr. Rafter. In the next year, for 2022, item N5 is for gate hard stands to accommodate the A220, which JetBlue has indicated they're looking to transition some of their fleet. You may recall just recently we've had a fairly significant project related to the hard stand upgrades, and that is completely right now funded by the airport at 1.1 million, and it's listed as possibly ASMP eligible. My suggestion with given next year that the airport share of projects being so large at almost 9 million, the 1,000 item that we could keep in but move to a further out year. My thinking on that also was the congestion and challenges the airport's currently facing on that north side of the terminal. It might give us a little bit more time for planning and to sort of figure out how we're going to accommodate that. So that was the one suggestion that I had for a change. And the other question that I had that I raised, and I believe Mr. Rafter is going to look at it, is, it should more of some of these costs be into the PFAS column versus the airport column, and maybe why some of those are different.
And I have to double check with the consultant, Mr. Chair, but I believe that the reason they're split out is because some of them may actually be eligible for some funding. So, but I have to verify that with the consultant.
Thank you. And then I'll open it up to discussion or whether there's a recommendation from the staff as to, or from the manager as to what year we might want to move item N5, or and how the commission might feel about that. But the following years, we drop down to 3 something, 4 something, 2026. I'm just looking at airport share,
Yeah,
balancing that out.
maybe in the 25 range.
Yeah. For some reason, that doesn't seem to be listed at 25. It jumps from 24 to 26, starts going every other year. So maybe 26, there's not a lot of projects.
Okay.
That I leave that up to the commission as well. If you guys all agree with that change, or we're going to have one more final vote on this, correct, at the next meeting, Tom?
Yes, and I think we'll have better feedback too. I mean, if MassDOT steps up and says, hey, we'll fund that next year, or a plan to look at it or something, we'll have better information after our meeting next week.
Any further discussion on that matter? Okay, well, maybe we'll just leave it to you for an updated draft for the next meeting on what might work there and based on the information that you get.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything else on the CIP? So we'll move on to the fourth quarter report for fiscal year 21.
I have a quick question though.
Yes.
On those hard stands for the A220, if they're not going to come, if we're not going to have A220s, then would we want the hard stands anyway if somebody's going to pay for it? And in other words, are those hard stands just for those type aircraft, or is there
If I may, Chair, I'm sorry. I think we have other priorities that may supersede that. We still have a lot of apron that needs to be done and some other airfield work that is more critical. I believe that's my opinion at this time. So,
Thanks. And we received the fourth quarter report today, I believe. And Mr. Rafter, you want to quickly go over that? Or
yeah, it'll be presented to the select board, I believe, next week. So the fourth quarter total revenue overall is up 3% or $525,000 over FY 2020. A major part of that is a result of a decrease that we made to the fuel revolver cap. If you recall, we dropped it from 5.2 million to 4 million. And that was done based on projections at the time of the related to the pandemic. However, while we decreased the cap by 1.2 million, our actual fuel sales exceeded the revised cap by 1.6, which rolled over into our operating account. The net result was a $433,000 increase in fuel sales. To offset some of that, our PFCs were down by about 302,000. Fee income was down by 378,000. But then on the good side again, we had increases in the FBO sales up 574,000, as well as the rental income up 290,000. So net overall, and on the expense side, our overall expenses are down 31% or 3.8 million. The main driver is decrease in payroll expenses due to reimbursement from the CARES Act. So we have to be very careful. It's kind of a misleading number there. Total payroll is down 75% or 3.6 million over this time last year. And we've submitted and been reimbursed through the CARES Act 3.4 million that are not reflected in the expense report in the quarterly. So we have to be very careful how we read these numbers. So basically, because of the CARES Act funding, the fuel sales and the FBO performance exceeding our expectations, we're indicating a significant increase in net earnings, resulting in a projected retained earnings of about 6.8 million. And while that's a great number, we have to be, again, cautious because we have a lot of expenses coming up between the PFAS, the fuel farm, and the housing, and some other capital items that we're, again, our goal is to minimize how much we have to take long-term. And so a lot of that money could be used up very quickly, but it is good news. Through the pandemic, we survived.
Thank you. Any questions on the fourth quarter report? Comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to Mr. Rafter's report.
So on the projects, Taxiway Echo are working with the consultants, both the engineer and the PFAS team and the contractor on preparing to return to work for the next phase. Security phase work, we're still working on some punch list and some other small items that we had asked them to complete in the fall, so they'll be back in September and October. Fuel farm rehabilitation, on July 28th, we had a meeting with the contractor, all the subs, all the consultants, and getting ready to begin that project. We're also working to finalize the plans for the temporary fuel supply system. So again, they're facing some challenges on long lead supply chain issues, but working through those. On the hangar development, we are still waiting to hear from Mr. Turner on his draft lease, and Mr. Hagedorn is moving forward with his project. Under RFPs and bids, we should have for next month the IFB. I think it's actually going to be an RFQ for a task order for contract for maintenance of the security system. We're working on a RFQ for the OPM for terminal space optimization. Katie's working with the town on that. Rental car contracts, we have meetings set up with legal. That RFP will be going out. And as Noah mentioned earlier, we're going to be preparing an IFB again for Novadear Way water service to see if in the fall if any of the plumbers can shake loose and are available. On the operations side, as you're probably aware, we've had issues recently in our ability to provide some services to our customers. On the weekend of July 31st and August 1st, we had to restrict fuel due to limited supply that came about as a result of various supply chain challenges, such as limited truck drivers, boat reservations, truck drivers timing out, a number of other items. Noah and the staff did a tremendous job communicating with all the involved parties and recovered very quickly. And to begin the day tomorrow, it's estimated that we'll have on hand over 86,000 gallons of jet fuel in our farm. So we're recovering from that. However, Most recently, we've been experiencing some employees testing positive for COVID. And that coupled with other employees that have been out on with injuries and seasonal staff returning to school, it's been very challenging, and I have to commend Preston Harriman and the operations staff and maintenance jumping in and supporting them. But we may have to, again, limit services occasionally and restrict some hours depending upon what the staffing resources are that we have available at the time. So I'll say staff made an amazing effort to maintain the safety level and firefighting requirements that are required by FAA. So it's been challenging, but they've done a tremendous job. Any questions before I move on to statistics?
Anyone? Go ahead, Mr. Rafter.
I'll try to go through these quickly. There have been significant percentage increases over last year because, again, the pandemic, but overall operations are up 142%. Year to date, they're still down 11.76. Southwest Ramp GA operations for June were up 64%. Enplanements are up 593% over last June and exceeded the 2019 number, but year to date, they're down 2.7. Cape Air went from 1,824 to 5,558, or 95% increase in enplanements. United had a significant percentage increase due to an earlier start. 78 enplanements last year, this year 4,082. Delta this year had 2,416 enplanements, while they had 73 last year, again, an early start. JetBlue were 5,811. Tradewinds was up 26%. Elite was new this year and carried 271 passengers. American carried 402 passengers last year and 2,947 this year. And Southern reported 347,000 enplaned passengers. The market reports are very interesting. In preparing this report, what I came across was that we have a number of new markets that it's amazing how many we have. But in any case, in Boston, Cape Air was up 902. JetBlue carried 1,900 for a total increase of 345%, or 2,800 passengers. Charlotte, American was down 13%, but from 79 to 69 passengers. DCA, Washington, JetBlue had 481. Overall market increase was 515%, or 1,665 passengers. New Bedford traffic was up. Southern added 116 passengers on that market. Newark, United enplanements were up from 78 to 4,000. White Plains, JetBlue had 610 passengers. Elite carried 271 for a total of 881. Hyannis for June, Cape Air up 114 to 1,294. New market, Southern carried 7 passengers. JFK, a lot of competition in that. The overall market was up by 3,671 passengers. LaGuardia, another competitive market, was up 1,411. The Vineyard traffic was up 85%. Bedford Hanscom is new. Southern carried 20 passengers there. Philadelphia, American enplaned 1,236. Providence Southern carried 77. And Chicago, American Airlines carried 135, and United added this market as well in July. So again, some new service to Chicago, Bedford, Lancaster, and some other places. So that's good news. On the fuel side of the house, Jet A gallons sold for June were up 155%. And for June, year to date, up 19.9%. For July, they're up 67%. Again, we're setting records there, and I have to commend the staff because they're doing it with less people. Avgas was up 106% for June and 5.27 year to date. July, they're up 56%. Freight continues to do very well, and for June was up 114% over last year. Year to date, up 46.5%. Cape Air carried 100,158 pounds. Mail carried by Cape Air was up 16%. FedEx up 81%. UPS up 163%. And in the noise side of the house, there were 26 noise complaints in June, up from 12 last year. and the details are in your pack. One other item just on personnel, again, I mentioned earlier, we're losing seasonals going back to school. We have 2 full-time employees out on injury. We had a position open for receptionist that has been offered to our FBO customer service rep, Fiona Johnson, and we're in the process of interviewing people for backfilling the FBO position. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on Mr. Rafter's report? I guess I just have one. I don't want to belabor it, but just for clarity, Mr. Rafter, are we comfortable that going forward through the rest of this season with having sort of caught up on the, getting the tank farm filled back up, that we will, staffing issues aside, that we're in better shape there?
We're in good shape there, but again, I think there's 2 things that are key. One is demand, which has been excessive. We're up about 75% over 2019 demand, and any supply chain issues, whether it be, a truck not being able to meet the boat or not having a truck driver, or if a boat cancels, and when you get those 2 together, that's out of our control. But again, I have to compliment Noah. He has done a fantastic job on a daily basis, communicating with carriers, with users, where we stand, and giving them advance notice as to whether or not we have any issues. But we're hoping that we are good through the rest of the summer.
And the one other, I had mentioned this to Noah, but just to sort of put out there for the commission, is one of the questions I had was, really, where is the role of staff and burden on the staff compared to the fact that we actually that we have a contract, with a supplier for this? And is there a way in future contracts that we may want to have language or other improvements to be sure that to the maximum extent possible, that this burden really does, fall on them more than onto you guys as a additional task? Is there any, you don't have to necessarily answer that right now. It's just part of what I'm thinking is where we pay somebody to sort of manage so much of this. And then I presume there's a bit of a Nantucket factor that comes into play, but if there's something we could do.
I have to say, in defense of our supplier, they do a very good job. They're extremely well aware of the Nantucket factor. They actually cut their teeth, the principals of the company, as line people in Nantucket years ago. And they work to get additional reservations through other companies. They work to pull from different depots. They've really done a tremendous job in trying to, get as much fuel to us as soon as possible.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
I just wanted to echo Mr. Rafter's appreciation of Preston Harriman and his crew and Noah for going above and beyond for this past weekend. I really appreciate their extra help. Thank you.
And I really appreciate it not being there. So
Great. Moving on to commissioners' comments. Does anyone have any comments? I just have one back to the entire commission, that, should there be anything that you want to see as an agenda item for future meetings in advance, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or to Tom. I'm more than happy to, try to, if there's something, that you want to see discussed as an agenda item, to be sure to get that on there. Is there any public comment? Not seeing any. Let me just double check the other participants. If anyone, so it looks like we just have Mr. Creed and Mr. Lasden, and no one is raising their hand. So we'll take it that there's no public comment. So I would entertain a motion to go into executive session per general law, chapter 30A, section 21A, to review the executive session minutes enumerated on the agenda, and the minutes for 7/13/21 for review and possible release. To, per clause 3, discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Walsh, where the chair has determined that an open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Airport Commission. And clause 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, where the chair has determined that an open session may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the Airport Commission. Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
And is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Mr. Viscarin?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you all very much. And we can stop the recording now, please, and attendees are free to sign off.